Welcome to the Bernie's Bootlegs podcast, where we explore the stories of successful musicians and share their perspectives on being an artist in a digital age. I'm your host, Kenny McCabe, and let's get into the show. In today's episode, we're speaking with drummer and composer Sanah Kadoura. We discussed her experience releasing an album independently as opposed to using a label, being Lebanese Canadian, why she picked up the drums at age 18, her experience studying with John Riley, overcoming self-criticism from playing at jam sessions, the highs and lows of a career in music, recovering from a brain injury and using music to share that story, and much more. You can find Sanah on her website at sanahkadoura.com and also on Instagram at Sanah Kadoura. And so without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Sanah Kadoura. Okay, guys, I'm here with Sanah Kadoura. Sanah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
How are you?
I'm good. Tired, living the life.
Yeah, we were both just talking about, both being a little bit burned out. And so hopefully we can push through that and make this an interesting conversation and worthwhile one for sure. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to recently.
Well, I just finished. I think I've got it. I just finished writing all the music for my second album. So figuring out the next steps from there. I've been playing a lot with, around anywhere, really. These days I have the day off in about a week. So when that happens, I'll know where I am again.
Nice. And so can you tell us anything about the album, or are you keeping it secret?
I don't know. It's I'm really excited about this one. I mean, I was excited about the first one. That was more of a concept album. I was in the middle of a brain injury, so I couldn't really chop out. It was more about the compositions and the vibe. But this one, I'm back. So I'm just ready. Awesome. And I love the songs. I feel like they're the most me that I've ever written. So
awesome.
Pretty excited.
Yeah. When can we expect that out? Is it 2020 at some point? Is that safe to say?
That's a possibility.
Cool.
There are factors. I don't know if I'm gonna. I did my first album independently, and I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
But I don't know yet if I want to go that route again. It was a lot of work to do everything,
For sure.
Except for mixing and mastering that I did not do. I had the amazing Bob Power, who did D'Angelo and Erykah Badu and Michelle Antonicello, and Jesse Fisher mixed it, who was just Soul Cycle, brilliant. I feel like it would be easier to be with a label, but at the same time, you don't really make money off of that. And it's like you put so much work into it. It just matters what you want at the end of the day. But I haven't decided that yet. So, and then funding, right? So let's say maybe 2020.
Maybe 2020. Yeah. Well, we definitely look forward to hearing more about that when the timing is correct. But for now, we can rewind a bit. And so you are actually Lebanese Canadian, which I saw on your website, and that is very fascinating because that's not a combination that is often heard, at least in my experience. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your family in Lebanon, Canada, and the combination of those two.
Well, my grandparents came from Lebanon. They had hopped on a boat and hopped in a boat. And a lot of Lebanese people stopped in Montreal area or Nova Scotia, right? Montreal. And then my line, I guess, went to Calgary, Alberta, which is in the mountains, the Rocky Mountains. So I grew up there. It was interesting growing up in Canada. Honestly, there's not a lot of jazz. So it was, if you were going to become a jazz musician or a musician, to be honest with you, you've got to seek. And now it's so easy to do that. We have YouTube, we have Spotify, Apple Music, Tidal, all these things where it's literally in our hands. So it's easier, but being in Calgary wasn't. Says I'm having a poor connection. Are you still there?
Yep, I can see you fine.
Okay. Um, yeah. Now moving out of Calgary, it's like, oh, it's hard, but it's hard to compare anything to New York's.
It's hard to disagree with. I mean, just in terms of the variety of scenes and just level of musicianship, I mean, it's hard to beat, I would imagine. And I would imagine also that the difference is pretty stark between New York and a place like Alberta, which is known for being ridiculously cold and barren, especially the more northward you go.
Well, you know what? This is people don't know this. Everyone thinks it's cold all the time. The
Hmm.
summers are really hot.
Huh.
Like the winters are really cold, but the summers are really hot. So the crazy slash special thing about Calgary is in one day you'll have all four seasons. It will be ridiculously painfully hot. The sun will be crazy on you. Then all of a sudden it's snowing, and then it's raining, and there's sleet, and it's like that's the thing, but it's not cold all the time. It's just very extreme most of the time. But yeah.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I've never been to Calgary or Alberta, but I'm curious now. I mean, it doesn't you make it you're making a good case for it. It doesn't sound as bad as the stereotype. So I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but it's still
Roger
bad
that.
when it's cold.
Yeah, Roger that. And so, was your family musical at all? Where did the inspiration to play the drums come from?
No, we don't have any musicians in the family. Um, I was kind of the white sheep. Um, I mean, in a lot of senses, I was just always different. I was the lightest one, obviously, pretty light. I was the only one into the arts. So, but I didn't start playing drums till I was a little older. I played piano first, and then bass and guitar, and then I had started playing the drums around 18, 19. I took a couple lessons, and then I auditioned for the college there. That was Mount Royal College, which is now Mount Royal University. Then I did 1 year there, and then I got kicked out.
Uh oh.
Yeah. Well, when you're that age, you're hot shit, and they wanted to show me that it wasn't. And I like to play hip hop and R&B and groove music and rock, and so I was again different than everyone in that jazz school. So I took that year off, and I was going to go into nursing. And then in that year, I realized, like, oh no, I can't live without this thing. Whatever it is, this is an everyday thing for me. It's not a hobby, something that needs to take up most of my time. Because I just was not happy at all. So I went back, and I was like, look, I'll change my tune. Let me back into the program. I'll do what I can. So they let me back in. I finished that diploma, and then I transferred to Nova Scotia, where I finished my degree, my bachelor in jazz performance or whatever, which was the smallest town I've ever been in. It was like, well, it was a university town, so there was 5,000 people, and 4,500 of them were in the school. And that was not a great experience for me either. I never really gelled with, certain personalities, especially at that age. I was young. I was much more feisty than I am. I'm still feisty, but I choose my battles now.
Yes. Wise.
Yes. But then I was just, like, I just want to play drums, getting it. Come on, let me. Um, Somehow got out of that school, finished, and moved down to New York and did my master's with John Riley, who is the best drum educator in the world, in my opinion. And I was super lucky. And he was honestly the first figure like that really saw something in me and put in the effort to make that happen. Whether it was a lesson where we just had to talk about life or a lesson where it was we didn't talk at all and we just played. There were so many. He just knows exactly what you need as a human and a drummer, that you grow no matter what kind of time you spend with him, whether it's sitting on a couch talking like he's your therapist or grabbing some food or playing drums, And I think that that was the first time I felt like someone believed in me, actually. Because I felt like up until that point I had done, was that 5 years of post-secondary, and I always felt like everyone was against me rather than, So it was really nice to work with him, and super blessed to work with him, actually. And then I was down here and I started gigging, and it just, this is where I was supposed to be at that time, and it was very instrumental. It was hard though, doing your master's in New York City. You spend 90% of your time trying to learn on the street, like trying to learn in the clubs, and then you gotta go to class and you're tired, and I didn't really make it to much class. I was thankful that they let me pass. So I do have my master's, technically. No, it was good. And John Faddis was up there too. That was great to work with him, to study with him.
Yeah, no doubt. And, there's a lot you could say about John Riley. I've never, I don't think I've met him. I've seen him play several times, but I haven't met him. But, just from what I hear, he seems to have a very, very deep knowledge of the drums and of music history and of drum history, and just so many, transcriptions that he has memorized. And he just seems like a very, very valuable person to be able to study with. So that's awesome.
Yeah, and he, like, most importantly, he's an awesome human being, so I've never really had the interest in studying with assholes or being around assholes anymore, you know what I mean? So it's just like, it's New York, there are thousands of people that can really, really, really play. Why waste my time on that type of energy? But I didn't have to with him, which was great. Which is very lucky. Yeah,
so I would love to rewind a little bit and ask you, why did you make the switch from playing piano and other instruments to playing the drums? Was there something that clicked? Was it like a recording or a musician that you heard? Or maybe just explain to us what was going through your head at that time?
I actually always wanted to play the drums. I just wasn't allowed to. I'm a girl growing up in an Arab family. Also, they're expensive, and we had a guitar and we had a piano. My brother was taking piano lessons as well, but there was always something in me that knew it was drums. I think I must have been 12 or 13 or something, and I was somewhere. I wasn't in Calgary. I think I was on some type of trip, and there was a band set up in this outdoor stage. But it wasn't like a festival or anything. I think they were just playing somewhere. It might have been some type of like skiing thing. I don't know. I don't really ski, but that's what comes to my mind. So I remember seeing this drum set, and it was black and it had fire coming up the sides. And I remember standing there and being like, like, oh, that's mine. That's me, And I sat there and I watched the guy drum, and I was just like, I can't even explain it to you. I just knew. And at that point, I started piano because I knew I wasn't allowed to play the drums. But yeah, it was crazy. I must have been 12 or 13. But I knew. And then on my 18th birthday, 19th, 18th. No, it must have been before that. 17, 18. Anyways, um, for my birthday, my dad said, go out and look in the car. And I was like, what? What is it? And it was this piece of crap drum set. And I fell to my knees and I started bawling. I was so just like, it was a lot of emotion because I knew it was something very deep for me, but I didn't know what it was yet, you know? So that was beautiful.
Yeah, that's powerful, man. That's powerful for sure. And so, let's talk a little bit about when you first got out of college. Like you were totally done with college. So you finished college at Purchase, and then do you immediately move to the city proper? Because Purchase is obviously in Westchester. You know, it's a little bit north of the city. Do you move to the city proper? And what was that time like for you? Those first few years?
To be honest with you, I moved to the city long before I finished Purchase. I moved to the city a couple weeks after I had moved to White Plains. I moved
Hmm.
from Canada to White Plains, and I was like, this is too far from where I need to be. I need to be
Yeah.
down there every night playing, and then, I'll make it up to class when I can. Other than that, that's where. So I picked up my stuff and I went down to the city, and I ended up living in the projects for a little while. And then after the projects, I was a little homeless for a while. But at this point, I had made some friends, so I would have a couch here, and you know what I mean. So it wasn't that bad. And then I had secured a spot with a great piano player, so it was great to be around a level above me where I could just kind of learn and being living in that. So and then I was going out every night. I'd go to Smalls, Fat Cat, 55 Bar, Blue Note, Dizzy's, Standard. I'd go everywhere. I'd get in everywhere I possibly could, see everything I possibly could, and I would hit the sessions every night. And I remember at the beginning of the sessions when I started going, I was so like upset with myself. Like I would play and then I'd be so sad I'd go cry in the bathroom, and then I'd go and play again, and then I'd be like upset, and then I'd go cry in the bathroom. But I'd do it every night until I stopped feeling so crappy about my playing. Um, and that was a beautiful experience too. It slowly, it just slowly got me more and more comfortable. But I knew I had to break that shell off and just really jump in. And I knew it was going to hurt, you know. I knew it was going to be painful. As much as, right when you move to New York, 90% of us have that attitude of like, yeah, you might be a big fish in a little pond and you come here and you're like, mm-hmm. Then you get up and you play and you're like, oh man, you know? So,
Yeah, that's super interesting that you were able to kind of overcome that, very, very harsh, I would imagine, like self-criticalness, playing at a session and just being overly self-critical to the point where you go cry in the bathroom. But,
all right.
like most people,
Oh, that was a while ago. I was 20.
yeah,
That was a good 10 years ago.
for sure, for
But I
sure.
mean, I still cry, but, not
Yeah.
in the bathroom after playing, hopefully.
Yeah, true. But, the vast majority of people, the first time that happens and they don't like the way that they played, they'll just, not go out to sessions anymore, or
Yeah.
they'll be deterred. And so I'm just saying, like, it was very, very, it's very interesting to me and very important and a great example, for other folks who may have similar feelings, that you were able to continue to push through those kind of thoughts and get to a point where you were comfortable, going out to sessions and playing and not being overly critical of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. There was definitely another option, I could have given up. I could have went back to Canada. I could have just been one of those people that just hang out and never really play, like, but um, that's not what I knew was for me. There was something in me that knew that I just had to get through this thing because I knew something great was waiting for me. Like when I saw those drums, it wasn't like, oh, that's going to be fun. It was like it was like purpose. There's so much healing, that we get to give through our creativeness, our craft, our gift. And I don't know if that's what I was thinking at that time, but I knew that I didn't have the option of giving up. So it was just, I had to find a way, It would have been easy. It would have been easy to just walk out and be like, all right, guys, it was nice meeting you.
Right. Yeah,
But
it would have been easy, but you definitely would have regretted it later on, I think. And I think
I definitely would have.
yeah, I think it's
I
true
definitely
true
would.
for a lot of people. You got to just do the thing, and kind of don't take it too seriously. Like, okay, you play a bad solo at small, it's like, who cares? Like, I think the reality is of like self-criticism and
Right.
that sort of thing, that you kind of have this idea in your head that everyone cares a lot more than they actually do.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, people are judging the fuck out of you. But you have to get to a point that's going to happen. You have to get to a point where that doesn't bother you anymore. I mean, it can't make you cry in the bathroom every time. People are going to judge you all the damn time because you are their perception of you. They don't really know you. Nobody really knows you. We're still figuring out who we are within our souls. You know what I mean? How is some dude going to really know you? Or some woman, sorry, anyone. But they're going to judge you because we all have insecurities within ourselves, and that's when we judge other people. But it took me a long time to figure that out. So, still working on it.
Yeah, of course, me too, and I'm sure all, or at least most of us are. And so let's fast forward a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what a typical day, if there is such a thing, looks like for you now. What types of gigs are you playing? What's getting you excited lately?
That is a hard question. I think part of this career is there's really no, um, I mean, you could have it all and then you can just be chill, So it's difficult. Right now I'm in a mixed phase, but it's generally it always goes like this, but generally it goes like this. There's the highs that I consider the highs personally are when you're on amazing tours and you're playing high level music with awesome people and high level musicians, and that's when you can really create, and that's when that can really heal people, you know. I really enjoy that. And then there are times where you don't have as many gigs, you know, and those are the times that I use to write a lot of music and practice and, you know, normal people things, read books, go for walks, you know, long walks on the beach. But, you know, it's, you know, I think the more time that I spend in it, it'll be less like this and more like this, which is the goal. And it's definitely already become a lot more like that, but you know, we got to keep reaching.
Yeah, most definitely. And, as you say, no matter what level you reach, there's always going to be days that are not perfect. There's no job on the planet where every single day you're going to get to do entirely things that you want to do. Even if you're playing, even if every single one of your gigs is playing, on a great tour or something, or with great musicians or great music, there's still so many other things that, you're not going to
There are
want to
hiccups,
do.
you know.
Yeah.
It's not always sunshine and daisies, but in those times I think that's where I gauge myself. It's like everything's not going to be perfect every day, but the way I look at it is those times that don't feel as great as other times. It's like a preparation for, you know what I mean? You can't be up here all the time. You'll get exhausted. You'll burn yourself out. You need some downtime. And I think now I'm starting to understand to enjoy my downtime rather than be freaking out like I used to, Now it's like, great. I just need a day, But I don't know. It'll all work itself out. Everything's going to be, I mean, no matter what we do, we have to have that faith but especially in a business like this, it's not like you get a paycheck every Friday, so you have to work your ass off. You have to hustle until you maybe want to retire. And then I don't know what you do from there. Everyone's different, whether you got stuff put away or, but,
I do not believe in retirement.
It's a weird one. I'm not entirely sure. I think it'll be different if, like, I'm like old and, I got another like really old dude beside me and we're like, let's just move to Italy and we're like 90. I'll retire. I'd be fine with that. Or alone. Shit. I like beaches. You'll find me on a beach.
Yeah,
somewhere.
Beaches are hard to argue with. I mean, beaches are awesome. I wish I got to go to beaches more. But yeah, I don't know. The way I feel about retirement, there's kind of like in my mind anyway, like a fundamental problem with the concept, in the sense that if you want to retire, which means that you stop doing your job. In the simplest sense, you stop doing your job and you do things that you actually want to do. Well, in an ideal world, I mean, why don't you just try and make your job something that you enjoy, and then you wouldn't want to retire?
Yeah.
Now, granted, that's not going to be possible for the vast majority of people, because it could be, the thing that you enjoy could be very, very difficult to monetize. You could really like something, but you could suck at it. I like to think of the ideal career as like the intersection of things that will pay you money, things that you are good at, and things that you enjoy. And so for a lot of musicians, I think that we really have it, very, very good, we at least get to hopefully do something that we enjoy and hopefully can be good at, and hopefully sometimes make money.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, if you can do something forever that you love and that feeds your soul and feeds your family, then why not? But I mean, what we do is very taxing. When you're 90 years old, it's not like you can tour like you once could when you were 20. It's a different ball game. So I think it's still possible. Obviously, it's still possible. We're seeing it with our elders, but I think you got to take it a little slower,
Yeah,
That's
no doubt. You can't
really
tour forever.
picky.
Yeah, you definitely can't tour forever, but I plan on living to at least 200, and so I think we have plenty time left. I kind of refuse to accept aging, but maybe one. I mean, it's inevitable, but I'm not ready to accept it just yet. So,
Well, if you start eating, I saw that lady that she was like 80 years old and she was eating raw food, only what she had grown, and she looked like she was 30. And her husband, who was 80, who was not eating only raw foods, looked like he was 80. It was pretty funny. I was like, oh, okay. Might be an idea.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, who knows? But we talked a little bit at the beginning about your upcoming second album, but obviously in order to be releasing a second album, you must have already released a first album, which I believe came out last year. And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that album, what the concept was, who was on it, and your general thoughts about what it was like to produce that.
My debut album is called Hawk Eyes. It was such a whirlwind. I had a brain injury where I couldn't walk, talk, like my sentences were jumbled. It was scary, and for a long time I wasn't able to do much. And this album is telling that story of all the pain and the fear I went through and coming through to enlightenment, which sparked me on a spiritual awakening. So it ended up being the most beautiful experience of my life. if you can imagine that, someone saying you can't walk or talk, and I couldn't breathe for about a year and a half because it felt like my nervous system was going crazy. So it was like a constant anxiety attack, but it wasn't attacks. It was just all the time. So it was hard to breathe for a long time. And I actually recorded the album when I had done enough healing to record the album, but I was still pretty much in the middle of the brain injury. At that point, I was having, when my nervous system would be overloaded, I would have anxiety attacks. And I had one the day we recorded. We recorded it on a snow day where all of New York was shut down, and one of the musicians was coming from Jersey, and everyone else was late. So it was crazy getting everyone there. And once we had finally got everyone there, we got things going, and then we had just I don't even know how this happened. We just popped through everything, and it was like this, great, okay, cool, yeah, all right, and it was a couple hours when we had a whole day booked, and but I honestly believe everything happens the way it's supposed to happen. So the cast was James Genus on bass, as you know, who plays with Herbie Hancock and SNL, and Mark Whitfield on guitar, who, 1,000 great names he's played with. Willem Delisfort on Rhodes, which is I really like that sound. So we have James on electric bass, Mark Whitfield, Willem Delisfort on piano, Rhodes. And then special guests, Tavon Pennicott on saxophone, and Jeremy Pelt on trumpet, or on flugelhorn actually, and Alim Basaldi on violin. So an awesome cast of humans and musicians. We went in there and we told the story. And now listening back to it, it's kind of crazy. I've done a lot of healing since then, like my brain, so it's always emotional to go back to that time and be reminded of how hard that was, but at the same time, how beautiful it was for me. Yeah.
Yeah. In a way, it kind of reminds me of something that most people might not know, which is that, if you look at people who receive diagnoses of terminal cancer, for example, and then, after, several months or longer thinking that they are going to die within the next 1 to 2 years, then, it either goes into remission or there's some sort of error and the doctor's just like, hey, you're not going to die. A lot of those people, if you look at interviews with them, they will say, man, those few months or a year or whatever that I thought that I was going to die, that was the greatest time of my life. And in the end, a lot of them are actually thankful that it happened because it put everything in such a perspective. Yeah,
it definitely put a lot into perspective for me. I'm like a completely different human being. It's very weird. I guess that happens with brain injuries. I'm still me, but I notice a lot of just little tweaks. I think for the better, but those are hard things to go through, especially when you feel really close to death. That will, I felt like I was dying every day for about a year and a half. And then it slowly started to ease up, and it was just felt like dying every second day, but it was just not felt like dying. I felt like I was dying, just to clarify. But, your perspective is completely different, and it's not only how you treat people and, just earthly things, but just world thoughts, universe thoughts. You get a lot more questions and sometimes a lot more answers, but it's I mean, yeah, crazy.
So yeah, this was awesome. Where can people find your first album if they want to check it out?
Well, if they want a physical copy, a signed physical copy, they can um, get in contact with me through Instagram, email at sanah.k@hotmail.com. Yes, I still have a Hotmail, and I'm holding on to that baby. Um, or Instagram at Sanah Kadoura. You can contact me there, and I can mail you a copy of Hawkeyes. Also, I guess the best way for digital downloads would be Bandcamp, I guess. So www.sanakadora.bandcamp.com. I think that is the one that the artist gets the most. Maybe Amazon as well.
Cool. Yeah, people will find it, and links to all that stuff will be in the show notes, of course. And so, any final thoughts? Anything that you would like to put out into the universe with the knowledge that this podcast will be on the internet in perpetuity?
If there is anything that I could say to wrap this up, I guess I would say I think we just all have to get to a place where we don't care as much of what other people think of us, and our art. If we're putting out art for the validation of others, then that's cool. But if you're putting it out for healing and growth and a lot of other beautiful things, then if you're proud of what you do, be proud about it. And that's okay. You don't have to be egotistical about it, but it's hard. It's hard, doing the whole New York growth thing and not caring about what other people think. But there will come a time where it'll hit you and be like, wow, I really just don't care anymore. And that's when it gets beautiful. That's when it gets beautiful.
Well said. Hey, this was awesome. We touched on a lot of topics, which I'm very happy that we got to discuss. A lot of just very deep, worldly and topics about life. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me. Really cool what you're doing, man. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Yeah, appreciate you. And stay in line for 1 second.
Okay.
Thank you so much for checking out the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you happen to be listening to this. And if you enjoyed the podcast, consider giving it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast app. For more episodes, please visit berniesbootlegs.com. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.